Look at the long shadows. Symbolic at this moment of the journey it's taken to get here. For all this history.
The long journey is over. McIlroy has his masterpiece.
Maybe the most dramatic sporting event of the year so far. I don't think that's an exaggeration. We didn't really get a super memorable NFL playoff game. The AFC Championship game was really good. You know, Washington's win over Tampa in the wild card weekend was pretty good. Ovechkin's record-setting goal a week ago, pretty memorable, but I don't think anything matched the up and down drama of Rory McIlroy's pursuit of another major championship in golf, like what happened at the Masters yesterday. Good morning, everybody. Yeah, there's going to be some golf talk on the show today. Denny McCarthy shot 1 under 71 yesterday to finish in a tie for 29th at the Masters. He'll be on the show with me today at 12 noon. Ben Standig will join us an hour earlier. We'll do some NFL draft with Ben and then maybe another NFL draft segment with another guest before the day is over. Alex Ovechkin scored his first goal since setting the record last weekend. Lots went on in sports this weekend. He's now at 896. The Caps are reeling a bit with 2 games left in the regular season. They have been eliminated from the President's Trophy race. Winnipeg is going to win that. What's still to be determined, however, is the Caps' first-round opponent. Columbus beating the Caps back-to-back over the weekend actually puts them in the mix. They're 3 points behind Montreal with 2 games to go. So the Caps' first-round opponent, which the playoffs start this coming weekend, will either be Montreal or Columbus. So that's a TBD this week thing. I'm going to get to Rory. I'm going to get to what happened yesterday. We're going to talk about that for a while. But I do have a what do you got to start the show?
All right.
What do you got?
The NBA regular season came to an end yesterday. The Wizards finished it in Miami with the most dramatic victory for the Wizards. There haven't been many this season. This is what it sounded like. Chris Miller, Drew Gooden on the call yesterday for Monumental. So, in many ways, it's not a game they really wanted to win. They only dressed 7 players with the idea of losing is better than winning. Why? Because the win actually means the Wizards finished the NBA season with the second worst record rather than the worst record in the league. Utah claimed that courtesy of the Wizards' buzzer-beating win. By the way, the shot by Bub Carrington was so difficult. It was a bank shot, double-teamed, buzzer about to sound, gets it off, high off the glass. It was a big-time shot. And if the game had meant something, it would have been a memorable finish. Now, the Wizards and the Hornets and the Jazz all have equal odds of getting the number 1 overall pick. 14% chance. All right, that's what you get for finishing with one of the 3 worst records in the league. And this year's draft in June, 2 months away from it, will be a huge one because Cooper Flagg is at the top of it. And so winning the lottery means winning the chance to take Cooper Flagg, a potential franchise-changing talent, an organization changing talent and player. What the Wizards also increased the possibility of by winning the game is that they could get a worse pick if they don't finish in the lottery in the top 4. The lottery selects the top 4, and then after that, it goes in order of worst to best records. And the Wizards, by winning that game at the buzzer, means they could pick 6th if the absolute worst case happened on draft lottery night, instead of the worst case being 5th. Now, with that said, man, they played with 7 players, no veterans, all young players. And Bub Carrington ends up hitting a game winner as they dressed 7 against the Miami Heat, who were also resting a few of their starters because they're playing in the play-in round in the Eastern Conference playoffs. No Bam Adebayo, no Tyler Hero, but still a 119-118 Wizards win on the final Sunday of the regular season. The Wizards finish 18-64 on the year. A year in which I know most of you weren't paying attention, did produce some decent feedback on the players they drafted last year. Alex Sarr had a Rookie of the Year contention season. He probably won't win it, but he may finish second. Keyshawn George, I thought at times looked like a player that has a really good future in the NBA. Bub Carrington, the same. They made a trade, at the deadline that brought in another very young player in A.J. Johnson. He's all of 20 years old. The 19 and the 20 and the 21-year-olds are plentiful in Washington. And I think, there are some players that can be a part of something that is good a few years down the road. They still need that superstar player. I don't know that we learned anything about the Wizards ending up with a true superstar player, but Alex Sarr certainly showed a lot at times for a guy that was picked number 2 overall, is 19 years old, 7 feet, 210, showed a lot of versatility and some really good defensive skills as well. Anyway, the Wizards did a Wizards type of thing. It was exciting to see how excited they were, but if they have total lottery failure and bad luck, they could potentially pick 6th instead of the worst case being 5th. But it did not change their percent chance of getting the number 1 pick overall. The NBA playoffs, which start with the play-in games this week, and the Golden State Warriors will be in that in out west, but they get underway with the 16 teams after the play-in games this week, next weekend as well, Saturday and Sunday, and that'll be the same with the NHL playoffs. So we will be into that time of year of the NBA and the NHL playoffs going on simultaneously as we build towards the NFL draft, which is now a week and a half away, a week from this Thursday night. Lots of draft talk coming up on the show. Let's get to the golf and Rory. So the golf yesterday, was for me, and I know not everybody loves it, but that's about as good as sports can be on an afternoon if you're watching the whole thing. But even if you just tuned in at the end for the drama of Rory missing the putt on 18, the short putt on 18, and then coming back and hitting an unbelievable second shot and then making the putt that I think a lot of people thought he might miss in the playoff, was incredible sports theater. It's a moment in which you just say, if you're watching it, man, sports can really be awesome. Even if you're not a golf fan. I don't even know if you needed to know the backstory. That certainly helped to kind of understand the emotion that came out of Rory McIlroy in the moment. We talked about this going into the Masters last week, Rory's backstory. Rory McIlroy was a golf prodigy, seen somewhat, as a young player as the eventual kind of successor to Tiger Woods. He won 4 majors, fairly quickly, and then went silent in the majors for 11 years until yesterday. And it was one heartbreak after another. Couldn't close, couldn't complete a comeback, whatever it was, whatever the situation, he just kept coming up empty in the majors until yesterday. He had 4, all right? It's not like he hadn't won any, and 4 is a lot, but he had never won the Masters and hadn't won one in 11 years. A Masters would complete the career Grand Slam, which it did yesterday, and he joined 5 other all-time greats to complete that career Grand Slam. The Grand Slam, for those of you who don't know, is winning the Masters, the U.S. Open, the British Open, and the PGA Championship, the 4 majors. That wasn't really the weight that he was carrying around all of these years. It wasn't about winning the Grand Slam. That was icing on the cake, and winning at Augusta was something that he wanted to do, and people thought he would win a lot of times at Augusta. From the time that, in 2011, when he took the lead to the back 9 and hit one so far left, they're still looking for the ball, and he shot 80 on the final round of that particular one. Now, that was not part of the 11 years of not winning majors. That happened before he went on his run of winning majors. But winning another major was the weight. If it had come at the U.S. Open or the PGA Championship or the British Open, it still would have been that level of reaction. The weight wasn't the Grand Slam. It was that he hadn't won one of these since 2014, and the expectation was that he would have had double-digit Grand Slams at this point in his career. He's won everywhere else. I mean, during the 11 years, he's been the best player in the game, but just no majors. And it hasn't been a thing for 11 years because players, great players, exceptional players, players who are expected to win, a major a year, they go sometimes 2-3 years without winning one. So the pressure really started to build in 2016, 2017, after he'd gone 2 or 3 years without winning one. That's when the pressure started to build. And it's been building now for 6, 7 years, 8 years. When's he going to win another one? It was, the comps, and we talked about this last week, the comp currently for, sports fans and football fans in particular is Lamar Jackson. That's really the comp right now. Lamar Jackson with the MVPs, the multiple MVPs, and he hasn't even gotten to a Super Bowl. And for Lamar, he hasn't played well in the postseason. And like Rory, to a certain degree, he's kind of got the perception, whether it's true or not, that he's really kind of come up short in the biggest spots. The Chiefs AFC Championship game last year, not this year. The Buffalo game this year, even though, he drove him down the field and there was a 2-point conversion for the tie and a drop, still he had a terrible fumble and a terrible interception. And that's kind of the current sports comp for Rory. Rory's no longer a part of that conversation. It would be Lamar Jackson. We've mentioned a couple of others, Josh Allen. We mentioned a coach last week. Max brought up Kyle Shanahan. Andy Reid felt that pressure for many years. John Elway was really the one, along with Marino, and Marino never got there, but Elway's the reaction when he finally won it, when they finally got his first and that win over the Packers, and this one's for John, after he had lost 3 of them. It's different in that Rory actually had 4 majors, but it was so under expectations. And it was Ovechkin before he won the cup in 2018. Remember Ovechkin's reaction when, the final seconds ticked off the clock in Vegas in 2018 in Game 5. It was like this incredible weight had been taken off his shoulders. It had been burying him, and it's been doing the same for Rory for years. Ovechkin before, the day that he won the cup, the reaction similar to what you saw from Rory. It's part of the drama of sports is when somebody with high expectations, using the word failure is harsh, but on the biggest stage has failed over and over and over again. And you're like, oh my God, when is this person going to punch through and win it? That thing in sports that happens where the expectations are massive and yet, the player or the coach doesn't seem to reach them, even though they come close, even though it's so obvious they should. Rory had plenty of second place finishes, top fives, top tens, but no wins for 11 years. We talked about, last week, I think we did a call segment, on the others in sports. I think after Rory won yesterday, now in sports, it's like it's about Lamar Jackson getting one. Yesterday was such a roller coaster ride because it was so him. If you watch golf and you've watched him on the biggest of stages, he does choke. And yet he also hits these incredible shots. He opened up yesterday double bogey. In 2 holes, he had given up the 2-shot lead that he took into the final round. I'll just tell you right now, I didn't think after DeChambeau made that putt on 18 on Saturday, I didn't think that Rory would win. I thought DeChambeau would win. He's the one that has actually come up big. He did not come up big. He played poorly yesterday and shot 75, putted poorly, more so than anything else. And Rory said afterwards, the double bogey on number 1, which just was so Rory McIlroy, 2-shot lead, all of the pressure. Is he going to do it? And it didn't take more than 15 minutes on the first hole to realize, nope, he's not going to do it. Anybody that watches golf knew after he sailed one 10 feet by the hole for par that there was no way after he double bogeyed. And then he said, actually, that was calming. It was like, could it get any worse? And he parred too, which is a birdie hole. And the lead had evaporated, and they were both there. He's down a shot after 2 holes. Down a shot after 2 holes. But the birdie at 3 and the birdie at 4 steadied him. Then he birdied 9, and all of a sudden, all right, he's building a lead. A 4-shot lead that he takes to the back 9. And then number 10, if you're watching this and you know the story and you know the career, and if you're a Rory fan, and I know not everybody is, I wanted him to win desperately. When he stepped to the tee at 10 because of the memory of 2011, where he absolutely blew up on the back 9, starting with his tee shot at number 10, you're like, oh my God, just put it in play. Just put it in play. And he did, and he birdied 10. And it's like, okay, all right, this thing is over. He's 14 under. At that point, I think at one point he had a 7-shot lead for Justin Rose, who ended up in the playoff with him. I think his birdie at 10 was a 7-shot lead over Justin Rose in that moment. And then he bogeys 11, tough shot, and that's such a tough hole. And then came 13. He decides to go conservative, which everybody said was the right play. He's laying up on the par 5 at 13. He had 242 left. Certainly could reach that easily with an iron, like a mid-iron. And he lays up. He plays it conservatively. He's got a big lead. Going into the water on that second shot, which is the risk, you could blow the lead. So he plays it conservatively. And then he does something that normal players do. He shanked one. He shanked one into the creek with it was an easy punch chip shot to the green. Take 2 putts, walk off with a par, you're in great shape. And he shanks one. And he makes double bogey. And oh my God, it is a problem. 14 he bogeys. 15. All of a sudden, the brilliance of McIlroy, the 7-iron into the green. You knew at that point he wasn't going to lay up because here comes Justin Rose and the lead has evaporated. But he still missed the putt. He missed the eagle putt from 6 or 7 feet, had the birdie, and then came the big shot at 17 after he missed a makeable putt at 16. And what was interesting is after the unbelievable 7-irons at 15 and then at 17, the shot at 17, brilliant, and then he made the putt. And now he's up a shot with 1 hole to go. Justin Rose in the clubhouse at -11, Rory at -12. And Jim Nantz, I love Nantz. I love him. He's an all-time great. There's no doubt about it. He's given us the backstory, the childhood, the, running out of tokens for the driving range, the family story, the whole thing as if this thing's over. Did anybody, he's got a par 18. He still has to par 18. And I think a lot of people are probably thinking this is the biggest pressure spot. Now he's got a 1-shot lead. All he's got to do is par to win. And Nantz, I don't know, man. Plus, during that, they went to an interview with Bryson DeChambeau. I didn't want to hear from him. I wanted to see how he was dealing with the pressure, physically, because he was feeling it. But he had just come off majestic birdies, majestic shots at 15 and 17. But remember, he missed that eagle putt at 15. That was a big miss. Birdied the hole, missed the putt at 16, but he made the one at 17. And I don't know if anybody else got the sense that Nantz and CBS seem to be kind of like, this is his victory march, up 18. No, it isn't. He's got a par. Hits a great drive. And then from a $125, and apparently not the same lie that he had in the playoff, he shanks another one. Now, that wasn't the true shank, but he hits a terrible, choking dog shot into the trap. But he hits a great trap shot, which leaves him with a very makeable 4 to 5 footer. But if you know Rory and you've watched him, you know he misses these. And he missed. And in that moment, just like at number 1, I'm like, can he win? No. Justin Rose has been there. He's going to win in this playoff. The drama, the up and down drama, the shot he hit at 6 or at 7, with the 9-iron over the trees where he was some of the shots he hit, and then some of the great shots. I don't know if we've ever seen a round like this one in the spot that he was in. The great shots, the brilliance on display, and at the same time, some of the biggest choked shots and putts that you've ever seen. The double bogey at 1, the shank at 13 to make double bogey. He made 4 double bogeys in the tournament. And then the shots at 15 and 17. But then the miss shorty for the win on 18. And then he comes back in that playoff is so dramatic because they both hit great drives. I was worried. I mean, him on the tee after what he had just gone through at 18 and missing that putt, I thought there's a chance he's hitting OB. He's going to absolutely slice one hard right, or he's going to hit it right into the trap, on the left part of the fairway. But he hits a titanic drive. And he said 2 yards less. I think they showed it at 125 yards, but he liked the lie better, he said, than the one he had at the end on 18, coming up 18 with DeChambeau. And Rose hits a great shot, and he's got a birdie putt, a makeable birdie putt. He had hit the long one at 18 to get to 11 under par. And then Rory hits another unbelievable shot. a wedge to 3 feet, 2.5 feet. Still wasn't sure. Still wasn't sure because I thought there was a chance that Rose made his. He didn't. He left it outside. There was no break in the putt. He thought there was. And then Rory steps up and knocks it in. And there were a lot of people that have watched Rory's career. Even if you were just tuning in yesterday, you probably thought there was a chance he would miss that one after he missed the one on 18. But he made it. And the emotion was I thought, so genuine. It was like one of those moments where you could tell that an individual who's been kind of tortured by this for over a decade, not winning another one, but the expectations every time he shows up for one is that he should win. And just it kept building and building and building. And he's only 35. He's going to have a chance. And maybe he goes on a run now that he's gotten this one off his back. But the emotions and what followed for those few minutes afterwards, for me, that's what makes sports great, especially if you've kind of been there following the journey and following the heartbreak, and seeing what had happened over all of these years. He's won a lot. He's won a hell of a lot on tour, but this sport is about the majors, all these sports are about the postseasons, the playoffs, the majors in the individual sports. And for him to get that one done in the way he did it, I thought it was as good a sports theater moment as we've seen in a long time. And the day leading up to it was just so wild that it was just nice to see him close it. Because I'll tell you what, man, after he missed that putt on 18 and had to go to a playoff, if he doesn't win, I mean, it is an all-time choke job. All-time. Maybe not to where Greg Norman blew a 6-shot lead. You would come up with chokes that were more mathematically worse in terms of the lead they gave up, but to miss the putt on 18 at the final hole, at the 72nd hole to win it when he pushed that, left of the hole. I mean, I was worried he wouldn't make the comeback to force the 1.5-foot comeback to force the playoff. There were other things that went on during the day. Patrick Reed finished third, 2 shots back. Patrick Reed made a bogey on 13 from 3 feet. 3.5 feet. He missed a birdie putt. Then he missed the comeback 2.5, 3-footer for par. He ended up bogeying that hole. He'd have been in the playoff had he just made that putt. He drained one from the fairway on 17. Scotty Scheffler played well yesterday. Nobody played as well as Justin Rose did yesterday. Justin Rose had an unbelievable round. The man made 10 birdies at Augusta on the final day to shoot 66. It was, I think, is just, look, team sports and some of the sports that we like a lot more than golf provide those moments. Yesterday was one of those days. And it was all about Rory. It was all about his, torturous journey over the last 11 years. And to see him win it, and then to hear, Bryson DeChambeau afterwards say, well, he didn't talk to me the whole round. The day before, Bryson didn't talk to his playing partner. That guy, you can have him. Not a massive fan of DeChambeau. I know his game, and I think he's a clutch performer. I was expecting him to win yesterday. I really was going into it. I thought 2 shots back after the way he closed on Saturday. This dude's built for this. None of this stuff ever really phases him. And Rory, better get off to a quick start or it's going to be a problem. And, of course, he doubles number 1. And then he's actually down a shot after 2 holes. DeChambeau, though, to me is an ass, honestly. and to take, a swipe at Rory about him not talking to him during the round. They had their moment on the range, if you saw that before. Rory was dealing with demons, man. He admitted to nerves. Gives a crap whether or not he talked to you during the round. Anyway, incredible sports. Max, you're a golf fan. What'd you think?
So I was at the Caps game, so I didn't get to watch the playoff, but I did see the final shot, and I was glued to the recaps when I got home. It was tremendous. Like the whole roller coaster of a round it was. Like I watched the first, I think 6 or 7 holes, and that back and forth at the beginning just let you know that it was going to be a long day of golf for both Bryson and Rory. I'm so happy for him that he finally got this monkey off his back, because you could see all the emotion just pour out of him. And that was like he said, that was what, 15 years of emotion, just putting on a brave face,
11,
coming to it. Yeah. Just putting on a brave face, showing up at Augusta every year and just trying like hell to make it happen. Yeah, I'm unbelievably happy for Rory that he finally was able to get this done.
I saw somebody put this, try to put it in football terms. They said, for someone that doesn't understand golf, can somebody put it in football terms? And I said, I thought to myself, that would actually be, an interesting conversation. And we'll open up phone lines, 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Anything that you want to say with respect to the Masters yesterday, phone lines are open. But try to put it in football terms. I've got a way to put it in football terms, and I'll give you that when we come back. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the Team980.com. 980 if you want to weigh in on the Masters, or if you want to explain the Rory performance in football terms. I've mentioned, kind of the comparisons to those that felt that, career long wait of not winning the big one. Again, not exactly apples to apples because Rory had won 4, but he had gone 11 years without winning. I think the Elway comparison is a good one. He had failed in his first 3 opportunities, typically not because of him necessarily, but there was so much pressure on him to finally win one, in which he did. Currently, I would, mention Lamar Jackson as the guy that has to break through, has to do something. In terms of an actual game, or a performance, because of the up and down nature. I mean, he hit 4 of the best shots you'll ever see. And then he had 3 or 4 of the worst shots you'll ever see. To me, it's a Brett Favre performance. It's a 4 touchdown, 3 pick, wild back and forth where you're like, what are you doing in one moment? And then you're like, oh my God, what a throw. Like Favre was always that way as a gunslinger. One of my all-time favorites, Phillip Rivers, was that way, where you'd be like, oh my God, this guy is on fire. He's thrown for 360 and 4 touchdowns. And then it's this back-breaking pick, at the end. And maybe that ties it up. And then I don't know. It's that kind of performance in football. It's a quarterback that throws, it's a Jameis Winston type of performance. Not exactly. Winston's never had the moment that Rory has had. Favre had some, unbelievable games. The NFC Championship game that he played with Minnesota, I went and looked this one up, that they lost in overtime. He threw for 310 yards, a touchdown. He was brilliant in the game, but he threw 2 huge picks. Now, they lost that game. He also threw for like 270 in the frigid temperatures against the Giants. That game they lost 23-20, threw 2 horrible picks, including the one in overtime, but also was brilliant throughout. Rory got through, but those are the kinds of comps, football comps that you would give it. 301-230-0980 if you want to weigh in on anything dealing with the golf yesterday. It was not, exactly the Elway breakthrough. It was not exactly, the Cubs or the Red Sox finally winning the World Series in terms of team things, because he had won before. But man, it really felt like an individual that had been carrying around a ton of baggage for a long period of time. Ian wants to weigh in. Ian, go ahead.
Even though Rory has 4 majors, it almost felt like he had 0 because of the time gap, the amount of runner-up finishes, the amount of heartbreak. And the comps to me are many, many, many players who were losers before they're winners. Michael Jordan, John Elway, LeBron James, Peyton Manning. There's so many athletes who don't win early. It's easy when you're Bird and Magic and Derek Jeter, where you win earlier in your career, Brady, and the narrative is he's a winner. But guys like Peyton Manning and Elway and these guys where they would battle and lose and lose and lose. And, it's funny. People almost forget that Jordan lost for the first 7 years of his career. LeBron, the first 9 years.
Remember the reaction
career.
when he had won it. It was also in the wake of his father's death, too. But the way he hugged the Larry O'Brien trophy and wouldn't let go of it. Yes, that's what yesterday felt like. No doubt.
Yeah. And so I think it's one of these reminders, and you and I talk about this on DM a lot, is how you felt when Gary Williams finally got past the Sweet 16, and then to the Elite 8, then to the Final 4, then the year later. It was almost like just getting past the Elite 8, Sweet 16 felt so great. So a lot of coaches, a lot of players, they're not winners until they are. So narratives change, and it felt amazing watching Rory.
Doesn't mean, by the way, talking about some of the DM things going back and forth. It doesn't mean that they suck, which is typically your take, if they haven't won it. But you bring up Maryland. Thanks for the call, Ian. You bring up Maryland. Yes. I mean, when they broke through and they got to a Final Four for the first time in program history, it was like for the program itself, really it was two coaches. It was Lefty and Gary. The weight had built up because so many times for, basically a 25 to nearly 30-year period, Maryland had teams capable of going to the Final Four and even winning the whole thing. In some cases, they couldn't even go to the tournament because of the tournament being much smaller in size. But I'll never forget, for me as a sports fan of, 3 or 4 teams hardcore, that was one of the most memorable wins. It wasn't the championship win over Indiana. That was massive. Don't get me wrong. But it was beating Stanford. It was beating Casey Jacobson and Stanford in the Elite Eight to go to the first Final Four in program history. It was incredibly emotional. Again, like we said, different in that Rory has won. Rory had won 4, but God, I'm not here to give Ian a lot of credit all the time, but he put it perfectly. He had 4, but it felt like over the last few years that he didn't have any. That's what had built up over time, because the expectation was that he would have 10, 12 by now. And he only had 4. He was stuck on 4 for 11 years. It was, in thinking about the way that LeBron and Michael and the big weight that was on, LeBron had it even more so. I mean, Michael, was banging his head against great teams, right? The Pistons in particular for those years. LeBron actually was coming up short over and over again and not playing great when they would come up short, whether it was losing to Orlando in 6 in the Eastern Conference Finals, getting bounced by Boston, which was his last game in Cleveland before he went to Miami. That first year in Miami, it was his breakthrough moment when they went to Boston about to get eliminated, and he went for 45 and triple double, and it was the first time really in his career he had broken through and played clutch in a clutch moment. They still got beat in the finals by San Antonio before they finally won it, and he got his first. But the reaction in the relief, it's almost relief when you've had these expectations. It was for Elway, it was for Jordan, it was for LeBron. LeBron actually is a little bit more, I think, comparable to Rory in that he was the reason more often than not that he didn't break through. Whereas with guys like Jordan and Peyton and Elway, they were great. It was the team around them that typically failed. Now, Peyton did not have great playoff games, actually. But Jordan had brilliant playoff games. Elway was brilliant for the Broncos when they were getting hammered in Super Bowls by the Giants, by the 49ers, by the Redskins. And they just didn't have enough defensively, and Jordan, was carrying that team. LeBron often was part of the problem, hiding in a corner, instead of taking big shots against the Mavericks. The Mavericks, were the first team that they lost to in Miami, the Dirk title. And LeBron's literally playing hot potato with the basketball. He's so nervous. Go back and watch Game 3 of those NBA Finals, and that's the comp in terms of where he was at that point in his career. And Rory, even yesterday, it was, you don't see players shank one from whatever that was, the third shot, the layup, the third shot on 13 into a creek. You don't see professional players do that, but he did that. You rarely look the putt downhill at Pinehurst on 18 was a difficult putt. The one he missed on 16 was a choke job. That's the thing. He's had these moments where it's just been like, I saw there was a tweet from former major winner Steve Elkington. I don't know anything about Steve Elkington and what he's like on social media. I just saw this out there. He tweeted this at 6:54 p.m. last night. He said that could be the greatest collapse in golf history. And effing CBS says, we have a playoff. Yes, there was not a lot of, constructive criticism of Rory falling apart. Now, he had unbelievable holes at 15 and 17, and the birdie at 17 was incredible after the incredible approach shot. But to miss that putt on 18, yeah, we have a playoff. And the march to victory sort of tone that clearly Nance was prepared for the march to victory and all of the stories about him as a child. But it was so far from a march to victory. You knew he had to make par, and you knew, if you're a golf fan, you knew that bogey and even double bogey were in play at 18. Really, really compelling sports theater yesterday, without a doubt. All right, we got some things to get to. Ben's going to join us at 11. I wanted to talk quickly about an acquisition that Washington made after the show on Friday that I did not get a chance to address on the radio show, but they've added another quarterback. More on that next.
All right, Rory McIlroy has finally done it. The Masters monkey is off his back. He becomes the 6th golfer all time to achieve the career Grand Slam, first since Tiger Woods did it in 2001. In local news, Caps fell twice this weekend to the Columbus Blue Jackets, on Saturday to 7-0 and Sunday 4-1. Columbus, still 3 points back from the Montreal Canadiens, are looking to fight their way into the playoffs. The Caps will close out their season this week, taking on the New York Islanders and the Pittsburgh Penguins. The Nats dropped their most recent series to the Miami Marlins, and they will take on Paul Skeens and the Pittsburgh Pirates today at 6:40 on 106.7 The Fan. The Wizards closed out their season in dramatic fashion last night versus the Miami Heat. Bub Carrington driving to the hoop in the waning seconds of the fourth quarter. He was the only rookie to play in all 82 games this season, and that's what's trending.
Ben Standig coming up in about 6-7 minutes. Denny McCarthy will join us at noon. Denny made the cut, finished tied for 29th at the Masters. He'll join us at 12. We'll do some NFL draft talk, certainly with Ben, and you'll probably hear another guest on the show talking NFL draft today. So Friday after the show, Josh Johnson was signed by Washington. Yeah, that Josh Johnson. Can you even say that about Josh Johnson? He was here back in 2018. I would imagine they signed him to a one-year deal. I would imagine that means he is going to be the third-string quarterback behind Jaden Daniels and Marcus Mariota. Probably means that Sam Hartman ends up being on the practice squad, but you don't know. I mean, somebody gets injured, camp, the whole thing. But the four quarterbacks going into camp will be Jaden, Marcus Mariota, Josh Johnson, and Sam Hartman. Josh Johnson is really one of the more remarkable and unique stories in the history of the NFL. Yeah, the history of the NFL. He has played on 14 NFL teams. That's a record. No player in the history of the game has ever played on 14 different teams. He's played on 5 of those 14 teams multiple times. He also, by the way, had a year in the XFL and a year in the UFL. His return to Washington after starting 3 games at the end of the 2018 season is the 25th time he has changed pro teams. 25 times he's changed pro teams. Now, if you remember his, brief period here in 2018, it came after the Alex Smith horrific injury against the Texans. Colt McCoy then came in, broke his leg on Monday Night Football against the Eagles. They signed Mark Sanchez. Sanchez promptly got benched for Josh Johnson, who they had signed, and he played pretty well. First, start, they beat Jacksonville to keep their playoff hopes actually alive. He was 16 of 25 for 151 yards, a touchdown, no interceptions, ran for 49 yards. They won the game 16-13. They were 7-7, and they were still in the hunt for a playoff spot. And the next week, they went to Tennessee and lost to the Titans, but they had the ball in Tennessee territory down 19-16. Johnson had played pretty well. He had made some plays off schedule, and then he threw an absolute crushing interception to end the game, and that eliminated Washington from the playoffs that year. But the story of Josh Johnson, he was drafted in the 5th round back in 2008 out of San Diego, University of San Diego. The Bucks drafted him, and he's had this incredible journey since. 25th time he's changed professional teams, 14th different team, 14 different teams over the years. He's 39 years old next month, and he after starting 3 games for Washington at the end of the 2018 season. In the last 6 NFL seasons, he's only started 1 game. It came in Baltimore, replacing Lamar Jackson in 2021. He threw for 304 in a loss to Cincinnati. He's familiar with Washington because he played here, but Adam Peters signed him as part of the 49er front office on 2 different occasions in 3 years. And he also played with assistant QB's coach David Blau back in Detroit in 2019. I wanted you to hear this soundbite, which Jay Gruden talked about Josh Johnson. It came back in October. It was during the week in which Jaden got hurt and Marcus Mariota came in against Carolina, played well. And then the lead up to the Chicago game, the Hail Mary game, was Marcus Mariota, would Marcus Mariota start for Jaden Daniels? We didn't know, at the time what would happen. We didn't really know until game day what was going to happen in that game. And the conversation with Jay, went back to 2018 and all of the injuries to the quarterbacks. And I said, that guy Josh Johnson played pretty well for you at the end. And I asked him, and you'll hear me ask him about Josh Johnson, and you'll hear what he said about Josh Johnson. I've asked you about him before. Guys like him, clearly there's something about him, right? He's smart. He picks up systems. He can He can throw it well enough because everybody, when he's available, seems to want him. He's never unemployed.
He is smart as hell, is what he is, and he can come in a pinch and pick up your system in a minute. I mean, I'd sign him in Cincinnati when to be our backup because we were in a pinch, and he came right in, knew everything, knew all the calls, knew all the snap counts. He just zipped right in there. And then when we obviously had the injuries, he's the guy I really wanted at first. I screwed up because we went with the more experienced guy because we're still in the playoff hunt, and some people wanted to go with Sanchez because I think Kavanaugh coached them or it was Jets. They had some familiarity with Sanchez. I like Sanchez, but I always tell the coaches that, hey, if you're going to this type of quarterback, you got to err on the side of athleticism because, we don't want a pure pocket passer coming in a week and try to learn the offensive protections routes. So yeah, when we went to Josh, we did a lot of good things with him. He did his own reads. He got himself out of trouble and did a pretty good job.
Smart as hell, he said about Josh Johnson. He had said that to me before too, maybe a couple of years earlier. It's interesting because you don't stick around and get signed over and over again, a record number of times in the NFL, when you're not producing or really have never produced on the field. Maybe not his fault. He didn't get the opportunities to produce on the field, but you don't get those opportunities without all the other stuff. Smart, great teammate, easy to have around. The Chase Daniels and Josh Johnsons of the world are always interesting to me, in part because they've made so much money for barely even playing throughout their career. And what really makes them interesting is that to most NFL fans, you would not be able to pick Josh Johnson out. They're faceless. No matter how many years they've been in the league, they're faceless, but they're not nameless. You know the name because they keep getting signed over and over again because there's something about these guys that everybody in the league agrees on. They all agree that Josh Johnson's out there. I want that dude in my locker room. I want him in my quarterback room, even though they may not want him to play. Always interesting to me. Washington, by the way, has a quarterback room with lots of intangibles in it, in Mariota and Josh Johnson, and then on the staff as well. Ben Standing next. Ben Standig is with us, as he is every Monday, an hour earlier, because we've got Denny McCarthy, who will join us at 12 to talk about yesterday's incredible sporting event. I think Ben enjoyed it as well. We'll get to some football here in a moment. Ben, of course, on X, on Twitter, at Ben Standig, has a podcast called Last Man Standing. And, of course, you can read him at The Athletic, as I do as a subscriber. Yeah, I think you actually texted me at some point during it. I don't know that everybody felt that way. I think there are a lot of people, listening to this show right now that are not big golf fans and don't really get the drama that I said was one of the best sports dramas of the year, if not the best sports drama of the year so far. What did you think?
Yeah, it's funny. I probably the text thread that I'm on the most with two of my friends. As I was trying to explain to them what was happening, they both said to me proudly that they've never watched 1 second of the Masters. And I was just like, I don't even comprehend that. Even if you're not into golf, like I'm not into NASCAR necessarily. I've watched the Daytona 500, like when there's compelling human drama and there's a competitive aspect to it. I mean, I definitely want to see it. And the Masters is obviously off the charts. And Rory, I mean, that was the greatest, sport/therapy session I've ever seen in my life. I mean, he laid it all out there. The highs and the lows were so extreme. And to see one guy go through that, knowing what's at stake, it's not just winning a tournament, not just winning a major. It's to get to the career Grand Slam. And we know the trials and tribulations he's had before this. So to see him go through that, where multiple times it looked like he was going to run away with it, or he was going to completely collapse, and then for it to, him to finally make, enough shots to get it done. I mean, that was, especially when, again, in team sports, which is our usual discussions, it's a team. It isn't, there may be the quarterback and there may be the best player, but it is still a team sport. Here, it is just you. It is, I mean, you've got your caddy there to talk to. Other than that, you have to walk in front of the world and show exactly what you're thinking, because he's not, he's not hiding it well. And wow, it was off the charts crazy. What a day.
Yeah, it's like I don't get those, even non-golf fans, but are sports fans or just fans of drama. It could be a television show or a movie that didn't feel. Look, there's a backstory there that you had to be familiar with to a certain degree. But if you were just watching the end when he missed the short putt on 18 to win it, and then the idea that he's now got to go line up and play a playoff against the guy that shot the round of the tournament, on the final day in Justin Rose, that to me, I don't really care about tweeting out a bunch of stuff when these things happen. Everybody, I mean, Twitter was just exhausting last night in so many ways, but also thrilling in many ways too. But I just said to my wife who was watching it, I'm like, what we just watched, that's why, because she really is one of those people that couldn't care less necessarily about sports. She's not a real sports person. And I said, that's what makes sports great. That what we just watched, and the reaction was so, if you knew anything about the story, to see his reaction, one of my callers who calls a lot, Ian, said, it was similar to like when Jordan won and broke through, and when LeBron finally, won and broke through. For me, I thought about Elway when he finally broke through. There are moments like that, but that was genuine, man. He's been carrying that around for more than a decade. Sir, if you want to say a decade's too long because it's been 11 years, but you don't really start feeling the pressure until you haven't won one for 2 or 3 years, every bit of the last 7 to 8 years.
Yeah, I was I'm not a team Rory guy, although even I at the end was like, dude, you got to make this putt. Don't miss this. But like it's sort of like how, like, when the Cubs and the Red Sox had those crazy long streaks of never winning a World Series, and part of what makes it fun for the rest of us who are not fans of those teams is every year this is a topic, every year this is going to be a real pivot point, and you know that there's tension, and that's what Rory was. I kind of almost selfishly didn't want it to happen because I wanted the topic to keep going. But yeah, I mean, to see him, to see the emotion out of him like that, and you knew it was there. But just I don't know. Like we've seen in sports, one team scores a touchdown, the other team drives down, gets a touchdown, or a basketball game, somebody hits a shot and they go back. This was one guy doing it to himself. He just kept going up. He kept going down. At the point Jim Nantz said he hit a shot of a lifetime, he proceeded to hit like 2 or 3 more shots of a lifetime after that.
Yeah.
So the swings were crazy. I mean, everything else was happening around him. I mean, big kudos to Justin Rose, who I've always liked. 10 birdies on the final round of the Masters. You can't ask for more than that. And DeChambeau had his brief lead. It was crazy that Oberg actually had a putt for the lead, and it was an ultimate afterthought, especially the way his round ended. But it was just all happening around Rory. He was the driving force of everything. And dude, I think like I said, I'm so glad he made the last putt. I could not have imagined a scenario otherwise. So glad that he did that. Yeah, like I said, even if I admit I wasn't really rooting for Rory, but wow, that was just unbelievably compelling.
Yeah, Oberg, by the way, contributed to the drama because of how long it took him to play 18. He triple bogeyed 18, which meant they were sitting there on the tee box waiting. I mean, Rory had lunch. He was eating some sort of protein bar and had a drink and was waiting to get to the tee to hit it. There was a lot that sort of contributed to it, including, and I talked about this. I mean, anybody that is even remotely familiar with Rory's history, I thought, and I saw people tweet this out, and I felt the same way, that Nantz was treating it like it was a victory march when he got to the 18 tee box. I'm like, dude, he's up his shot. He could easily double bogey this hole and lose outright. He had the whole backstory stuff, on his growing up in the driving range and the token down to 1 token, 30 balls left, the whole thing, talking about his parents and the whole thing. I'm like, this is not, this is going. I mean, I was nervous when he stepped to the tee box over and over again yesterday. I thought that the first time I got really nervous for him was when he stepped to the tee box at 10, because he had been there in 2011 with the lead, and he had a 4-shot lead, and that tee shot was so huge. But then it all came, crushing. The thing was burying him, after his double at 13 and his bogey at 14, and then to come up with the shots that he hit at 15 and 17. The funny thing is he missed a bunch of putts, like those majestic 15 and 17 hole shots were also, he missed the eagle putt, and he missed one at 16. Which really could have extended the lead out and made it less dramatic. But it was everything that the individual struggle, specifically in sports, is all about, man. That was on full display.
No doubt. We have a mutual friend who, by the second hole, was already, I think, on the verge of throwing up because Rory looked like he was about to throw up the whole thing. And then 3 holes later, he's up 3 shots. And just, I mean, the amount of times that pendulum swung of what you thought was going to happen, and just seeing this one guy going through it, and to know that, that's the thing, and in terms of the Jim Nantz, you're right, Jim Nantz made it feel like a coronation. I had other people say to me, boy, Jim Nantz is focused solely on Rory, even though everybody else was kind of around him. But that's the thing, is there are some individuals that we all see, that we recognize, have the gift from the gods, that they have got. There's when they win, it isn't just that they were the winner. There's something special there. This is another moment of a chapter in what is clearly has the potential to be an all-time career because of the heights they can reach. And this kid's had this, for, I don't know, 15, 20 years at this point, or whatever it is. He's been that guy. If somebody was going to even sniff the level that Tiger got to, it would be him. And he showed it. And we all remember the U.S. Open of the Congressional and all that. And then it's been his decade of just dude, are you going to what's the deal here? Are you going to close this out? Not just the Masters. I mean, he blew the U.S. Open last year.
At Pinehurst
to DeChambeau. So, he's had this, and he had it yesterday. I mean, he definitely, that account Old Takes Exposed. They retweeted somebody who earlier in the round said that Rory was going to choke. He did. He did 15 times, but then he kept coming back. That's the part. Normally, when the guy chokes, he doesn't do the most incredible shot the next time, but he kept doing it. It was epic fun.
One of the interesting things about golf, unlike almost every other sport that we follow, it's more skill than it is anything else. It's not necessarily overwhelming athleticism. It's a refined skill. But part of the game of golf, when you have nerves, unlike other sports, you can't get them out through some level of physical contact. You hear football players talk all the time. It's like, man, I was so nervous until I got hit for the first time. Basketball or hockey, I guess baseball to a certain extent is that way too, but there's no physical way to get rid of the nerves. You have to deal with it somehow. And to your point, I actually thought when DeChambeau made that long putt at 18 on Saturday, I thought Rory was in trouble. Based on what we've seen from him, DeChambeau actually kind of delivers in these moments, and Rory hasn't. And when he doubled number one, I thought it was over. I thought it was definitely over. I thought DeChambeau would win and maybe going away. So yeah, he choked there. He choked at 2. He choked at, obviously 13. That's a shank in a big spot where you're playing it safe. And at the same time, all of that was surrounded by some of the incredible, brilliant shot making that we've seen throughout his entire career. It was riveting for sure. I mean, it's a long day. I remember many years ago, my wife said to me, "What? You're going to sit here and watch golf for 5 hours? What? Football's one thing. No, that golf on a Sunday with that kind of matchup is must-watch sports television. I've not seen the ratings. I would assume it killed it. Not Tiger-esque. Nothing reaches Tiger-esque levels, but that had to be, a massive number that CBS did yesterday.
Yeah. And look, the thing with the Masters is we always talk about the back nine on Sunday being where the drama is. This was drama from the first shot Rory hit.
Jump.
And it's to sustain it that whole time. That's oftentimes in sports, a game will come down, with NCAA tournament, right? A game will come down in the last couple seconds. Somebody hits a game-winning shot. Everybody goes, "Wow, what a game!" And not really. It's it was a great last few minutes. The rest of it was, somewhat forgettable. This was high wire act from the first stroke all the way through to the literal last one, both directions. This is the antithesis of Nick Faldo winning a major with 18 pars on the final Sunday. This was, off the charts. And look, he had to have, obviously Justin Rose had to get into the mix there, obviously just to force the playoff. And, he had to fend off a couple other guys here and there. At one point Rory was losing by a shot in the midst of his collapse at 13. And then, Rose, was able to hold on to some degree. Oberg fell off. I don't know what else to say other than just that was, if you're into competition and you're into drama, and I don't care again what the sport is per se, if you have any sense of the backstory, you just have a feel why watching it, like you said, that you could, hey, they're explaining this guy is trying to do something that only 5 other people in the history of the sport have ever done. He's tried it now umpteen times and always just not comes up short. Justin Rose is now, he's been second in the last 2 majors. It's unbelievable to me. He only has the 1 major win. He should have a lot more, but it's not but it's also just the way he carries himself. Justin Rose, even yesterday, was "Hey man, I did the best I could. It didn't work." Rory, it's just constantly wearing it on the sleeves. He skips media availabilities. His post game on Saturday, talking to CBS, it's Amanda Balionis. That guy looked like he was about to lose by 10 shots the next day. He was so nervous, you could tell. and that's what makes this also so compelling. One of the best players of all time also has this, Greg Norman had some massive collapses. He also did win a little bit, but the collapses more define him than anything. And Rory, he loses that he's going to have that legacy too.
Yeah. It's the first thing you talk about when you talk about his career is the absolute meltdown at the Masters in 2025. We talked a lot about this last week, and I forget if I even had this conversation with you, but I would put right now the player and or coach that replaces Rory in that, has to win hot seat. I put Lamar Jackson in that seat right now more than anybody else. Do you have somebody that you think is feeling the pressure of winning more than him in sports?
That's a really good one. No, that may be. I was thinking about this in terms of golf. Like, who is the person now that doesn't have something, a major or whatever? And I hadn't quite figured out the definitive answer. But yeah, no, Lamar Jackson. I mean, look, we talk about it in the same way every year we go into the NFL season, discussing, is this the year that it finally happens? And every time he has a playoff game, it's a referendum on his legacy and what does it mean if they lose or whatever. So yeah, I think that's a really good one for sure. I mean, Josh Allen has obviously also has yet to win one.
He just got his first MVP. I think Lamar's ahead of him, and Lamar hasn't played well in the postseason. Yeah. Josh Allen has.
Right. Josh Allen, by all rights, should have beaten Kansas City the year when Mahomes led them to a game-tying field goal with 13 seconds left. Right. Yeah. No, I think that makes the most sense. Like, we're in this unique era where, like, tennis, like, all, other than Djokovic, all the, the guys who've been around for a while have retired essentially. The NFL or the NBA is going through this shit changing of the guard right now with LeBron, Curry, et cetera, sort of on the verge of fading out, but the younger guys are not as compelling yet. Like, I'm not worrying about Anthony Edwards winning a title or whatever, but that's a ways to go. So yeah, Lamar's a pretty good one.
Yeah, I was thinking too last night, who's the best player in golf right now not to win a major? Lee Westwood was that guy for so many years, and he never got it done. There's really not anybody. I mean, Cantlay hasn't won one. Finau hasn't won one. Hovland, but, I guess it might be Ricky Fowler. But Fowler, it's been so long since he's been a top-level, player. He has, when's the last time he won? Or did he win in the last 2 years on tour?
No, Ricky. Yeah, I had this exact conversation yesterday. Ricky Fowler's faded off too far, and like Hovland's too young, and Finau, yeah, sure, but like it's not the same thing. Right. He's a contender, but not at the highest level.
Right. Talking to Ben Standig. All right, let's switch it to football. I was talking about Josh Johnson and the incredible story that Josh Johnson is career-wise. 14 NFL teams, 25th time now. His return to Washington, 25th time he has changed pro teams. You and I had this conversation on Friday, I believe. Boy, they have a building full of people for Jaden Daniels to see if he has a question about anything. I mean, they've got unbelievable intangible maturity in that building for that quarterback, not to mention a new left tackle.
Yeah, no, for sure. One thing that blew my mind, this is not about Washington, but when Bill Belichick, time was up with New England, and they talked about bringing in a new staff, and they said they were going to have a quarterback coach for the first time in, I don't know, for how many years, because he never had one. Obviously you had Tom Brady forever, but like even when Brady left, they never had a quarterback coach. I'm like, that's bizarre. That's just like an obvious thing. That's one guy. Here, yeah. I mean, to have a guy like David Blau on staff, who's already getting a reputation as a really good offensive mind, who had just played in the league the year before, to be on staff. He's like the seventh guy, after Kingsbury and after Tavita Pritchard and Brian Johnston, and they have Marcus Mariota there for this purpose. And obviously, Dan Quinn's not a quarterback guy, but he's coached against him. He's been a head coach, and now you add in Josh Johnson, who's going to be 39 I think 39 next month. He's obviously been there, done that. We can say, hey, look, he's never really been a starter, but there's a reason teams keep bringing him back over and over and over again. And he's clearly got some wisdom to share. And like I said to you, I think when we talked the other day on your podcast, like it's a curious move to me, because I would have thought, if anything, you sign a third guy or draft a third guy to potentially be your QB2 next year, right? When Mariota's only got the 1-year deal. Instead, they go like the complete opposite way and sign somebody who's, never could be viewed as the future for anything, unless it's the very shortest of short right. timeline futures. So that was very curious to me. And, obviously we'll see, can Sam Hartman beat him out? Do they actually still, somehow end up with another young quarterback in the draft or post-draft? But yeah, Josh Johnson, I mean, it's, a guy that, if he has to play, he can help a little bit, but he certainly should be able to help Jaden Daniels learn the game even more.
That's crazy that New England never had a QB coach all of those years. Like, even I'm thinking about just his last few years, Belichick, when he had Mac Jones. You didn't have a QB coach? I understand.
I don't know the duration of it. And obviously, they had Josh McDaniel, and that counts as like
right. They had Bill O'Brien. They had the guy that ended up being the Notre Dame coach in the early Brady years,
Charlie Weiss. Yeah,
Charlie Weiss.
Right, but to not have in this era where teams have, that's become the thing in the last few years. These guys get promoted to being pass game coordinator, or this, that, the other. And you're like, you have all these different things, but you don't have one. I'm not positive how many years he didn't have one, but he didn't have one at least towards the end. And yeah, that's just an incredible. I mean, look, this is also the same guy that had Matt Patricia, a defensive guy, be the offensive coordinator one year. So I don't know what Belichick was doing in this regard. But yeah, no, they're not lacking for that here. And look, there's no salary cap on coaches and staff. So if you have the wherewithal and the owner is willing to spend, and you know what you're looking for in terms of other thinkers, then yeah, the more the merrier isn't always great. But in this instance, do whatever you can to help the quarterback. Absolutely go for it.
A year later, because we are a week and a half away from the NFL draft, do you think there's anybody anywhere in the league that believes Chicago picked the right guy?
I would guess the answer is yes. I mean, look, Jaden Daniels certainly had his backers. I mean, and Washington has, seemingly said they would have taken him first and all that stuff. But I mean, look, in general, I mean, I was certainly doing a lot of homework prior to that draft. And, in general, most people seem to prefer Caleb Williams. And maybe that's following the herd. But, there's obviously a lot to it. We'd heard about Caleb Williams for several years, whereas Jaden, it was, a bit more of a late push to get all the way up to that level. So, yeah, I'm sure there are some people who say, hey, look, he was on a dumb team. They were going to get rid of their coach. Their coach wasn't an offensive guy. Their offensive line wasn't good. The Bears are the Bears, all those things. So, yeah, I guess the answer would be yes, but clearly that number's got to be a lot fewer than it was a year ago.
Yeah, I'm wondering if there's anybody, like if NFL people who were asked to go back and redraft last year, how many redrafts, Caleb Williams goes third or even fourth behind, say, a Drake May. I don't think he's going behind Bo Nix. I think that was system driven as much as anything else. But I bet you a lot of people redrafting would have had Chicago taking Jaden Daniels, Washington taking Drake May second.
Yeah, I don't think that's a crazy thought. I mean, look, in terms of the Caleb Williams part of this, look, he's got Ben Johnson, right? I mean, now Ben Johnson, we're viewing Ben Johnson as, he's on the Mount Rushmore of offensive thinkers. I kid, but that's the way the hype's been the last couple of years. So if somehow he can't get it done here, then, if Caleb Williams doesn't look better this year, doesn't have to go to the Pro Bowl, doesn't have to lead the Bears to a division title. But if we're not seeing more, then, it's still early in the career. But then at that point, okay, well, we can't just blame the Bears for all these other things. They've rebuilt their offensive line. They've got Ben Johnson. They've done a lot of good things on paper to help this kid. So Yeah, we'll see. But yeah, certainly the gap is much narrower, if not Jaden's in the lead in terms of who you would rather have. But I still think there's probably people out there who think that in the right setup, Caleb Williams is the better guy.
When is Washington going to sign Terry McLaurin to a contract extension?
Yeah. I mean, not that there's not that there's not some urgency, right? Just to get it done, it's there. A lot of times, of course, as we know, deadlines create deals, and there's no real deadline here at the moment. I mean, I'm sure Washington's like, hey, look, we got to get through the draft. When Terry signed his contract the last time, it was post-draft, and I know it's a completely different regime, but just saying that happened then. So, look, there's no major urgency. I guess OTAs and the workouts, that all starts a few weeks after the draft. To me, that's sort of the deadline. So you would like to think he gets it done. They get something done before then, so he doesn't miss any sessions the way he did in 22 when he did sit out a few. So no rush. But once we get here post draft, that's got to be probably the number one topic is when's this thing going to get done.
Talking to Ben Standig, Washington currently with 5 picks in the upcoming draft, which is a week from Thursday night. They've got a first rounder at number 29, a second rounder at number 61. They've got a fourth rounder, a sixth rounder, and a seventh rounder. How many players do they end up drafting in the upcoming draft?
I'll say 6. I mean, I think they do at least make one trade to do something. The question is that going to be at 29, where you would obviously be able to likely get more, the most stuff. So maybe at that point you can get, 2 picks beyond, just the swapping of a first for a second, and then maybe you can get like a fourth and a sixth, or a third, a third and something, or maybe it's like a fourth and a third rounder next year. They've obviously already lost some picks, so I suspect they make at least a trade. It's just a matter of is it the trade that gets you more because you move out of 29? That is the question, and I think that the quarterback conversation will be an important one there in terms of other teams looking to move up for quarterbacks. I do kind of get the fear. I fear now that like the quarterbacks may just go too early, and 29 won't be as exciting for that. But yeah, I think they make a trade some points. I'll say 6.
Yeah, you and I have talked about this before, but I think this is a draft that most draft people, and Ben will have his final mock out, the night before the draft. Ben's a multi-time mock draft champion. He'll have a lot of stuff out this week. When do you do your Washington draft for The Athletic?
I think I have to have that up like Monday, Tuesday of the draft week.
So a week from today. I think one of the things that there seems to be some consensus on is that this is a terrible quarterback draft. And number 2 is that out of the 32 first-round picks, there are probably only 20 to 22 first-round worthy players, which says to me that the chances of being able to trade back to a team interested in getting into the first round would obviously be player specific, but there are other teams that will be looking to do the same as well in and around where Washington picks. So maybe not the easiest trade back draft. Agree or disagree?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. Back, even a month ago when we were talking about the draft in terms of quarterbacks, and it was Cam Ward, Shadur Sanders, are they going to go 1-2? It doesn't seem like that will be the case now, that Shadur falls a little bit, maybe a lot of bit. We'll see. But now, like Jackson Dart, quarterback from Ole Miss, kind of feels like he's going to be in the first round. And could there be even a fourth? We know that Jalen Milroe, the Alabama quarterback, is apparently accepted invitation to go to the draft, which typically means you got some sense you're going to be a first-round pick, not just the player, but that the league does. Otherwise, you wouldn't make the invite typically to have a kid sit there. And, so are there going to be 4 quarterbacks in round 1? Again, if that happens, then maybe, the trade-ups are really a thing. I think the only other position to me that sort of stands out is offensive tackle, because if you look at the various big boards that are out there at public, there's a handful of those offensive tackles who are going in the top 25 or so picks. And then between 25 and like 75, there might be 2. that are going based on projections. So, if that's the case, then if you want to tackle, you better jump up quick. So, that might be another position where, sure, maybe they're not like the individual player isn't truly worth like moving up a ton, but if you want that position, you may not have a choice. So that would be the only other one for me, I think, that could be interesting. A guy like Josh Simmons from Ohio State, Josh Connerly from Oregon, Kelvin Banks from Texas. If those guys slip into the 20s, that could be a boon for teams like Washington looking to trade out.
All right, last one. I did see some video of Jaden, I guess, over the weekend at Brandon Ayuk's wedding, I think it was.
Uh-huh.
Do you have any idea if he was close with Kyron Lacey, the LSU receiver who was found dead in an apparent suicide on late Saturday night?
Yeah, he posted Jaden on social media on his Instagram account, posted a bunch of photos of them together, with like Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas and that whole group. And, to what extent, I don't know to the level of their closeness, but yeah, there was definitely a tight bond there, going through, college together. And obviously Lacey was getting ready for the draft. But, so you're definitely there. I mean, obviously, I guess it's somewhat bad timing if one of your other good friends are getting married. But he definitely showed some, put up some videos and some pictures on Instagram that expressed his, sadness for losing his friend.
Yeah, really sad. He was going to be. I mean, there was some issues, obviously, with a traffic incident in which somebody passed away. I think towards the end of February, I believe it was, or. Yeah, but he was a talent and a potential first-round pick in the 26th draft. All right, thanks. Talk to you end of the week.
Yeah, man. See ya.
Ben Standig, everybody. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com. Nico Iamaleava is a quarterback who played for Tennessee last year. Very talented quarterback, big dude. If you watched college football last year, 6'6", 220. Had some good games for a Tennessee team that ended up in the postseason. Remember, they played in the playoff round against Ohio State on, I think that was the Friday night or Saturday night game. He was terrible in that game. There were a couple of other games. He played a game against Georgia in which he was not very good. Had some rough spots here and there, but, a tremendous talent at 6'6", 220 with an arm and incredible mobility. Some comparisons to some other big, tall, rangy quarterbacks, even to Cam Newton, just a slender version during the course of the year. I got paid a bunch of money to go to Tennessee. And then last week decided to, let Tennessee know that he wanted his current deal, which was $2.4 million, on a commitment that he had made to Tennessee that he wanted to renegotiate his NIL deal. College athletes holding out. And so you got this moment last week where, Tennessee quarterback Nico Iamaleava was holding out for a renegotiated NIL deal. He wanted his deal to be in the $4 million range. And Tennessee basically told him to go pound sand. Josh Heupel, the coach at Tennessee, said, quote, "No one is bigger than the program," closed quote. The tipping point came when Iamaleava did not post for the first practice of spring football. We had a lot of spring football from over the weekend as he was going through these NIL contract discussions. Apparently, he had his representatives reach out prior to spring practice to other teams, including Oregon. But Oregon apparently told him they weren't interested. And so Tennessee basically said, quote, "This program's been around for a long time," Josh Heupel said. "There are a lot of great coaches, a lot of great players who came before that laid the cornerstone pieces, the legacy, the tradition that is Tennessee football. It's going to be around a long time after I'm gone and after they're gone," close quote. They notified him that they were no longer interested in having him on the team. So he is entering the transfer portal and will be looking for a new place to play football. It'll be interesting to see who's willing to give this guy what he wants. I really, in watching him last year, I thought he was one of those examples. Look, a very young player. He played. They played an early season game in Norman against Oklahoma. Oklahoma turned out to be a not very good football team. And they won the game, but he was horrendous in the game until he got it going a little bit, in the second half. He had another bad game. They lost to Arkansas. Mentioned that he did not play well at Georgia, didn't play well at all in the playoff game against Ohio State. There were some moments where his athleticism and his arm strength were on display. He was just one of those guys that you could tell didn't see it, didn't process it quickly. Not that as a super young player that couldn't have improved, but it wasn't natural. It wasn't natural. But we'll see what happens. There is obviously still the possibility that this month we get Congress, we get the so-called salary cap provision passed. That won't be the same as NIL, but NIL might be regulated a little bit more, and we'll get more traditional NIL. Anyway, one of those interesting stories from over the weekend that had a lot of them, over the weekend. There was a lot. By the way, speaking of a lot, before we get to Denny McCarthy at noon, when we come back on the other side, Maryland men's basketball went through it, man. Exciting season, exciting Sweet 16 run in the tournament, only to lose its head coach to Villanova, only to hire then another head coach, and to lose almost every player that was on the roster last year. Well, Buzz Williams right now has a transfer portal class that is climbing the rankings. More on that next. So Maryland basically not only lost its head coach when Kevin Willard left, but it basically lost its entire roster. And two key players that almost, I shouldn't say assuredly, because I think Jacoby Gillespie, there was always a chance he would go to Tennessee after this season ended. He wanted to go back home. But there would have been a chance that Rodney Rice and Jacoby Gillespie would have been, key parts of a team that if they had come back next year with Kevin Willard, Maryland probably would have been a preseason top 25 type of team. Buzz Williams came in and basically the whole roster is gone. But in a week and a half, I guess it's been a week and a half at this point, he has added 8 players via the portal to the roster. 8. Couple of good ones over the weekend. Isaiah Watts, a big-time guard out of Washington State, probably their highest-ranked portal guy, was added. They had already added Miles Rice, a point guard from Indiana, David Coit from Kansas, Pharrell Payne, who played at A&M for Buzz Williams, who had massive games in the tournament in the first 2 rounds. I think he went for 25 and 10 and 24 and something, and could be, one of those players on the verge of really blossoming. Big 6'9", kind of 4. Elijah Sanders, they got from Virginia, 3-point shooter. Andre Mills from A&M. Solomon Washington, one of the better defenders in the country last year from A&M. And George Turkson from A&M. 8 players he's already signed in the portal. Maryland's portal class so far, at least according to Sports Illustrated, is number 6 in the country. Michigan, Louisville, Kentucky, LSU, Creighton ahead of Maryland at 6, then Washington, UCLA, Indiana, and Miami. 8 players added, more to come for a team that not only lost all of its players that were potentially, players that still had eligibility to come back, but lost their committed recruit as well. So he still has a rest of the roster to fill out, but the 8 players that he has signed in the portal have Maryland's portal class ranked 6th in the country. So more to come. The player Bryce Lindsey from James Madison, who apparently does not have Maryland on his final list, which I know that there was hope among Maryland fans that he would. Bryce Lindsey, big-time portal guy. Rodney Rice still has not made a decision, although he did go to social media late last week to talk about the 6 schools that he's considering. Maryland was one of them. Tennessee, where Gillespie went. Villanova, where his head coach went. Gonzaga, USC, and Auburn, all part of that list. I would love it if Rodney Rice came back. I think the odds are less than 50-50. I think a lot of Maryland people believe the odds are much less than 50-50. It's a shame because I started talking about Rodney Rice, midway through the conference schedule, maybe early in the conference schedule. I think he's an NBA player by this time next year. I think he's a guy that is talked about as certainly a drafted player, if not a first-round potential talent by the time we get here next year. You bring Rodney Rice back on this team to go with what they've added in the portal, and all of a sudden Maryland and this idea that they were going to take a massive short-term hit based on the way everything went down goes away, and Maryland all of a sudden has at least some players capable of competing. Look, college basketball's changed, man. We don't know what you're going to get year to year when you have this much roster change and this much roster turnover. Last year, Kansas number 1 in the country preseason, they're out in the first round. Carolina top 10 out in the first round after having to win a play-in, a first 4 game to get in. Every year is going to be so much more unpredictable because you can't even, in ranking the portal classes, decide whether or not it's going to be great chemistry together, whether or not the pieces individually, which may be ranked high, will come together in the way that, say, Maryland's did last year. I mean, Maryland with their 3 adds in the portal and their 1 freshman player, obviously, in Derek Queen, it's a perfect fit Gonna have a coach. Got to have a coach that sees and has a vision for how these pieces will fit together when you are potentially only going to play together for one season. All right, Denny McCarthy shot 71 1 under on his final round yesterday at Augusta to finish tied for 29th. He will join us. We'll talk about what it was like for him over the weekend, but really the incredible drama that turned into Rory McIlroy for about 4.5 to nearly 5 hours yesterday afternoon. That's next. Kevin Sheehan Show. The Team 980, theteam980.com. We are also free and live on the Odyssey app. The drama of yesterday at Augusta, really as good as it gets in sports. Somebody who was there all day yesterday and all weekend long is our friend Denny McCarthy, who's been on tour for 10 years. He shot 71, 1 under in the final round, 2 under for the weekend, finished even par and tied for 29th, which is his second best result at a major. He tied for 7th at the 22 U.S. Open. So I don't know the timing of it. I'm always following you, as are everybody from around here that knows you and knows your family. What time did you finish, and then were you able to catch the drama that unfolded, as we got into the afternoon, late afternoon and evening?
Oh, I caught it, thankfully. Obviously, as a golf fan, I probably finished. I teed off at 11:50, I think, and finished around 4:20, 4:30. So took roughly 4.5 hours, maybe a little more to play. Talked with everyone that watched the round. Everyone that was there to support me. I talked with them shortly after the round, and then it was, all right, let's gather all our things and let's watch the back nine. And obviously it was a very entertaining back nine to watch.
So tell me, where do you just go into the players lounge and everybody's watching together?
No, it's, there's actually a Wheels Up private jet company. They have a hospitality tent across the street that my family and I have had access to over the last couple of years. And so there's a really nice hospitality tent across the street with food and drinks and a million TVs. So it's a great spot to post up and watch the coverage. And so that's what we did after the round yesterday.
On the course, do you at any point, because you're out there when DeChambeau and Rory are teeing off, do you hear, I mean, you may look at the scoreboard. I don't know if you do. I forget how you handle scoreboard watching. You weren't in contention necessarily yesterday. You've been in contention many times at various tournaments, but do you hear that Rory doubled number one and lost the lead after number two?
Yes, because the leaderboards, so like I have no idea where I stand. Like you mentioned, like I'm kind of middle of the pack of people who made the cut. So I don't really, I have no idea where I stand. Like I didn't know if I was in 40th, 30th, 20th, 15th, I have no idea where I am, but where the top 10 guys are, just because they have the leaderboard and what they're making on each hole. They kind of put their scores, or what they are in relation to par. So when I was playing the back nine, you hear the cheers or the groans, like when the scoreboard numbers get put up. So like immediately on, I don't even know what hole I was on, but that Rory doubled one, Bryson made par, and they're tied basically. And then you see the Bryson birdie two, and you hear the crowd's reaction. It's pretty funny and interesting to be out there and hearing the crowd's reaction simply just to the volunteers, the scoreboard people putting up their scores. So it was pretty fun to follow and watch, in between shots, looking at scoreboards, seeing what they were doing starting out.
Did you play with Michael Kim yesterday?
I did, yes.
So do you guys start to talk about it? Like, I'm just curious how that works at a major when there's that much drama going on far behind you. I don't know how well you know Michael Kim, but do you guys end up talking about it? And like, I felt, Denny, like when he doubled one, I'm like, it's over. Rory, DeChambeau's going to win this thing.
No, I think, Rory mentioned that, like, when he doubled one, it kind of almost calms him in a way. Yeah. And, like, he mentioned he was really nervous starting out. And I've had rounds like that where I'm nervous and I make, like, a sloppy bogey or two. And I'm like, all right, well, now I've got, like, it kind of calms you down in a way. Like, I've got nothing to lose. And, like, let me get back to freeing it up. And, Rory's been very resilient throughout his career. And even this past week, I think he made 4 double bogeys. Only person to make 4 double bogeys and still go on to win the Masters. So he's got that kind of firepower to bounce back from something like that. And obviously, he made a couple really silly mistakes yesterday, but he always seemed to regroup and regather and do something spectacular on the next hole or two. So that obviously provided great theater. It kind of looked like it was going to be a boring back nine Masters, and then it turned out to be one of the most exciting Masters that I've seen and I've witnessed. So he provided some great theater, obviously for the golf world, but it might have been one of the most entertaining things in sports that I've seen.
Oh, in a long time, no doubt. We're talking to Denny McCarthy. He finished tied 29th at the Masters yesterday. I'll come back to the drama. I did want to ask you a little bit about your 4 days there and how the course played. You played well. I mean, you tied 29th. Friday was the difficult day. Overall, the experience this weekend and the way the course played, et cetera, just give me a minute on that.
Yeah, it was a great week. It's a long week mentally and physically. Like, it feels like 2 tournaments packed into 1 week. I can't imagine what Rory feels like with the pressure that he's under and playing that golf tournament, because I know it's exhausting for someone like me. So I can't even imagine how he felt. But, I didn't make a ton of birdies and I didn't make a ton of mistakes. I think I made 8 birdies and 8 bogeys for the weekend and 56 pars. So I didn't really make any putts of length. I didn't really make any bonus putts, as I like to call them, to really get anything going. I had a really good game plan for the golf course. I played some holes somewhat conservatively, but still gave myself looks on those holes. I don't know. I didn't make any doubles or triples or any crazy scores. So I'm proud of how my game plan was, how I kind of formulated a plan to play the golf course and stuck to it. I had a lot of really good chances. I had a lot of really good shots yesterday. I probably could have shot 4 or 5 under yesterday and just didn't quite make some of the putts early on in the round to kind of get something going.
Where were your opportunities early in the round? Were they at 2 and 8?
No, the last few days on number 1, I hit it to 10 feet on Saturday and 15 feet yesterday too. It's not that easy to just get a good look on 1. It's a really difficult opening hole. Missed an opportunity on 2, both Saturday and Sunday. I didn't birdie 2 at all on the weekend. 3, I hit a really good putt to a really tough front left pin. It's really easy seems like such a blah hole on TV, but in person, it's one of the most unique short holes I've ever played. The more I play it, it feels like, it's a game of chess instead of checkers on number 3. It's kind of such a fascinating short hole. Hit a really good putt that didn't go in there. Made a good save on 4. 5's a really difficult hole that I typically like to lay back, and you hit it in the left bunkers, it's jail. And so I hit 3-wood to avoid going in, and I leave myself a longer shot, but I laced a 4-iron from 233 yards to 15 feet and had a really dicey putt, but just burned the edge. Hit a great shot on the top shelf on 6 to 15 feet, didn't make it. Just barely missed the bowl pin on 7. Didn't convert with the wedge on 8, and then missed a 15-footer on 9. So I had a lot of really good chances on the front 9, and I parred every hole. Then turned and hit 2 great shots on 10, missed a 15, 18-footer. Then all of a sudden I missed a 6-footer for bogey or a 6-footer for par on 11 and make bogey, and I'm somehow 1 over through 11. And it felt like I probably should have been, anywhere from 2 or 3 to 5 under. And I'm like, how the hell am I 1 over par right now?
Right.
So, I found a couple birdies coming in, which was nice, but I played a really solid round of golf yesterday and just didn't get much out of it.
Denny, for those that don't know, one of, if not the best putters on tour for many years now. Real quickly on 16, they put that pin in a spot in which Jack Nicklaus 50 years ago in the 75 Masters made an unbelievable putt. I mean, it's the non-traditional spot for the pin at 16. I think the drama is much better when it's down below and we get to see some runs at hole-in-ones. But was that a real difficult spot to hit to at 16?
Yeah, it's probably the most difficult pin on the green, but I like what they did there. They moved the tee up some 20 yards or so, maybe 25 yards. So I think the hole number was 171. It easily could have been 190-ish. And then you wouldn't have seen nearly as many shots. I like what they did. They put that pin, but they moved the tee up. So, you know, most guys are probably hitting 8-irons. Some of those longer guys might have been hitting some 9-irons. So it's a really small shelf back there, small landing area, but with an 8 or 9-iron, you still give guys a chance. It's a nice risk reward with an 8 or 9-iron. With the 6 or 7-iron, you wouldn't have seen nearly as many guys hitting it up there on that top shelf. Like Justin Rose hit it up there, Scotty hit it up there, Bryson and Rory both hit great shots. Like those are really good shots to hit it up there inside of 10 or 12 feet. So I like what they did. It still gave you an opportunity. You had to hit a really good shot, but it still gave you an opportunity to make a 2 there. And also, if you vice versa, if you don't quite execute, you miss one long right there or you don't quite take it on and hit it on the shelf, it was a difficult 2-putt. Or if you hit it long, then you're really in trouble there. So I like what they did moving the tee up there.
You mentioned nerves, and there's nerves. I would assume you get them, at every tournament. But what is the difference when you're at Augusta or in a major versus like this weekend in Hilton Head?
Yeah, I mean, I'm nervous starting out, but it's a good nervous energy. I've played enough tournament golf in my life to where, I don't let the nerves. I don't know how to put it. I feel comfortable with it. It's I've dealt with it a lot, so I feel really comfortable in that situation. I'm sure I would have been a lot more nervous if I was a couple back of the lead and I had a chance to win. So it wasn't as I didn't have a ton of nerves. I feel like I had a free roll to go shoot a good round and have a good finish. So I didn't feel super nervous yesterday. But it's just a different aura about that place. I describe it as feels like once you get on site, it's kind of like you're like in a Hunger Games bubble. Like it's just like this. It's a totally different world. My mom actually described it perfectly a couple weeks ago. She said it kind of feels like you're in a snow globe, which is a perfect way to describe it. It's just there's really nothing else quite like it when you step on the grounds there, and it's just such a cool vibe. The crowds yesterday were unbelievable. I've never seen that many people on a golf course. Like even when I was on 16 green, 6 green is right there. Like 5 green and 6 tee are up on top of the hill, and 6 green is right there. And there's so many people there, and the leaders were right there at that time. So I was on 16 green. The leaders were on like 6 tee, and there are so many people around there. It was crazy. It was just such a cool atmosphere to be out there and be a part of that.
And then when you go back to that tee box at 13, it's like there's nobody. Like it's right. Like that's the part of the property in which you don't see any fans. You're just so tucked back at the edge of the property.
Yeah, 12 green and 13 tee are very peaceful back there. You don't really hear anything. The crowd behind, over near 11 green behind 12 tee, they can't really, you're kind of in the shadows on 12 green. They can't really see what you're doing. You get some faint claps, but it's really quiet back in that corner. Yeah. You have nobody's 13 tee is super quiet. I feel like you're in your own little world in itself back on that tee box. So, it's just such a cool piece of property, the routing of the golf course. It's just there's nothing else like it. It's such a fun week. I obviously to play Augusta, playing the Masters second time. You learn something new every time you play it, from whether it's your shot or you're playing competitors. You see new things and pick up on things. And so it's those kind of little tips, some of that knowledge. You gain something every round you play there, and you kind of put it in the memory bank and write some notes down about it. And, you're better for it going forward.
What was the number one thing you learned from this weekend?
It's a good question. I don't know if I can pinpoint one thing, because I feel like there's a lot of little things.
All right.
Just playing with, I played with Charles Schwartzel the first couple times. He's obviously won there and played a lot of tournament rounds there. Just how he plays certain holes and where he leads it to certain holes. I have a good idea of how to play the golf course and understand a couple little shots he hit that, okay, he's clearly trying to stay away from the bunker on one. It's not a great place. He hit 3-wood off the tee and leaked a couple right at it that didn't get into it. 5, I don't hit driver. He didn't hit driver. He hit 3-wood just to totally avoid those bunkers, because those bunkers are kind of like a shot penalty, basically, if you hit it in them. But guys like Bryson and Rory, they're long enough to where those bunkers don't even play for them. They can carry those bunkers, so they can go ahead and just rip it over. Someone like my length, I can't quite do that.
Right.
And that really, really squeezes in if you hit driver there. It makes you look right. And then some bushes and trees start coming in. So I don't like dealing with it. I just like to hit a 3-wood, ensure that I'm going to get my second shot up near the green, essentially. So playing with Charles, I picked up on a couple things that he was doing that, okay, I'm thinking properly. He knows that, this bunker or that bunker is a shot penalty, or, up around the green, you don't really want to quite take on this flag. It's better missing here and chipping up the hill. The property is super hilly. I mean, everything from the clubhouse is basically the high point. Everything goes down towards, 11 and 12 is kind of like the low point of the property. So, certain putts break a lot more going towards that direction, or less going the other direction, and really slow going up towards the clubhouse and really fast going down towards that way, towards Race Creek. So just a lot of information. I played the par 5s not as good as I wanted to. I feel like I had a good game plan on them and just didn't play them as well as I wanted to. For me, going forward, hitting the par 5s is huge. Those are, scoring opportunities that you need to take advantage of. And I played 8 pretty well, but the other 3 par 5s, I didn't play that great. I just didn't make enough birdies on them. So it's all about positioning on those par 5s, certain tee shots and pins to take on, and some where you're not really trying to hit it on the green. You're really just trying to leave it around the green with a manageable chip shot, essentially. And so I just got to clean some stuff up going forward, but it's so much fun to play there. It makes every shot, it feels like you need to execute, one of the best shots of your life. Like every hole, I can't express how demanding of a golf course it is. Tee shots, but especially second shots, like you've really just got to be on, and it's so much fun to play because it makes you think so much. And that's why I'm probably so tired, because physically it's a really hard walk, but mentally it's such a grind. It puts such a toll on your mind on how much you have to think and how hard you have to really lock in on each shot. It's just a heck of a place.
We're talking to Denny McCarthy, by the way, not only the best putter on tour, but the best basketball player on tour. If he's not the best basketball player, he's certainly the best shooter of any golfer on tour. Played basketball, Georgetown Prep, UVA zone, and a DMV from start to finish. So I did want to, I brought something up earlier in the show, Denny, about Rory admitting to nerves and being nervous throughout. Golf is so much different in that there's no physical way to, get those nerves, out. Like football players will say, I was nervous as hell until I got hit. Hockey players, the same thing. You don't have that. So when you do have those nerves, what is the process for a golfer to get rid of them?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's like everything else, every other sport is so fast and reactionary. It's like, I feel like nerves don't come into play as much because it's just go, 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 and things happen quickly and you're reactionary. Golf, we have so much time to think about things in between shots. For me, I get moving really quick. I try and just slow my breathing down, slow my walking down a little bit, and just focus on some breath work stuff, and really just try and play super free and try and just, see target, commit to a shot and really lock in on hitting that shot and not worrying about anything else. Just really commit to the small targets that I've picked. And that helps me when I get nervous. Just really lock in on my target. That's the only thing that I see, and just try and hit that shot. And I think Rory's kind of a similar way. I know he works with Dr. Attella, and I talk with Dr. Attella too. So I know some of the things that he's probably thinking about and how he's trying to go about it. And I
he's
know
a
he's
sports psychologist, I'm assuming.
Correct. Yeah, he is. Dr. Bob Rotella, he's world renowned.
Okay, yeah, right.
He works with the best of the best. I mean, he works with golfers. He works with basketball teams. He works with you name it. He's worked with a lot of top athletes and champions all over the world.
Does he ever just suggest maybe a little swing oil that'll help?
Not quite, but he's great to talk to. He puts things into perspective so well. It's just really simple. He'll tell stories to kind of get his point across, and he's always kind of about point and shoot and seeing your target and just really committing to the shot and kind of all process oriented. So I know that's probably a lot. I know it is. It's a lot easier said than done most times, especially in Rory's case. He's kind of had this monkey on his back for a long time. And I'm sure it's really hard to stay process driven, process oriented. And, all you want is the green jacket, right? He's been seeking this result for 15 years.
So that's where I wanted to get. I wanted to get back to his round. I wanted to find out, first of all, was Rory the overwhelming player rooting favorite yesterday?
I mean, probably, yeah. I mean, I think, most of the golf world were probably cheering for Rory. I know most people in that Wheels Up hospitality tent were cheering for Rory. Even my caddy was pulling for Rory. I think it's just kind of a feel-good golf story, right? I mean, it's, he just became the sixth person all time to win the Grand Slam. He's probably the most deserving to get this. He's had so many close calls in majors, and he's played so well over the past, handful of years. It just felt like he was deserving to get the job done.
Yeah.
And it was just crazy. I couldn't believe some of the mistakes he made yesterday. It was like, like hitting the wedge shot in the water on 13 is like crazy. It's like one of the worst shots I've ever seen. And
right.
From 80 yards, I mean, he could have chipped, like he kind of hits this lazy, uncommitted wedge swing looking shot when it could have just been like a long chip shot. All he had to do is get it on land left of that pin, and it's essentially the Masters is his almost.
I wanted to ask you, let's start there. First of all, did you think the strategy of laying up was the right strategy?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you hit driver off the tee and you go for the green. That's how you make a bogey. He was ensuring that by what he did, he was ensuring basically he could have hit that wedge shot anywhere inside 15 feet, had a good look. He could have made a 10 or 15 footer, made birdie, and it would have looked like, a really smart decision, which you think when he's doing that, you're like, okay, he's taking any kind of bogey or double out of play. And then he kind of looks like he almost had just a little bit of a brain lapse, a little bit of an uncommitted swing on what he wanted to do on the wedge shot. So he played the hole right until he didn't. It's so easy to criticize what he did. People probably like, oh, why didn't he just hit driver and then just with his length just hit it on the green? And then But if he does that and hits it in the water, people are like, oh, why with a 3 or 4 shot lead, why wouldn't you just lay that up and play the whole safe? So,
right.
I mean, you can't win, right? Like, if you're him, you can't win in any scenario because he's being looked at under such a fine microscope. It's like whatever he did there, people are going to criticize why didn't he do the other thing? So he was in a no-win scenario.
Was that a shank, Denny?
No, that's not a shank. Shank would have gone right of the creek. He wouldn't have. Okay. Shank would have gone not in the water. It's just such a severe upslope. The ball's so far above his feet. He was probably playing for a little kind of hook draw lie off that stance. It just looked like he made an uncommitted swing at it, really.
So, one of the things when we get to 15 and he hits that 7-iron to whatever it was, 6-7 feet, what kind of got underplayed at 15 and 17, the phenomenal approach shots, not at 17 as much as 15, is he missed the eagle putt. Like, that was a very makeable putt for eagle for a 3. He makes birdie there. 17 hits an unbelievable shot as well with a 7-iron. Talk about the 2 approach shots at 15 and 17 and how difficult they were and how great they were.
I mean, I'll even throw in 16 too, because he hit it on the top shelf to 8 feet on 16. So 15, 16, 17 were all unbelievable iron shots. Just perfect shots, exactly where you want to hit them. 15, I wouldn't say where he hit it on 15. That's a great shot. That putt is a nasty little putt he had. Okay. That little downhill right to lefter. I kind of knew before he hit that he was going to miss that putt low. That thing is a really tricky read and breaks, call it almost a foot from 6 feet. People don't quite realize how fast that putt is and how much it breaks and how tricky it is. I mean, he missed it by a cup. He didn't really give it a chance, but you got to tap that thing almost sideways. It's kind of sneaky how much that putt breaks. So it wasn't a gimme 6-footer. It wasn't your standard uphill right center 6-footer. This thing
kind
was
of like 18 at Pinehurst, which was not a gimme.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, it's downhill right to left, probably breaking 2 cups. I mean, it's like a kind of a hit and hope. You just want to tap it sideways, and you kind of almost need to get lucky a little bit type of putt. 16, I thought he actually hit a really good putt. He's similar kind of putt, kind of a downhill right to lefter, super fast, crispy greens. You kind of need to tap it. And the greens got kind of crusty, a little kind of chewed up. It's not like these weren't like easy putts he had. Same thing with this putt on 18. I knew it was a really tough putt. It's kind of a tap it out like a cup out right and kind of hope you get a right bounce or two almost. These weren't easy putts he had. I mean, it would have, I'm sure he would have liked to have made 1 or 2 of those so he wouldn't have to go into a playoff.
Right. So you think the putt that he missed at 18, first of all, the shot before that, 125 yards, he said it was not the same lie that he had in the playoff, but you talked about 13 is as bad a shot as you'll see. What about the approach on 18?
That was a bad one too. I mean, 125 yards, bullpen. You're looking to put it anywhere in that section. It would have been a decent shot.
And he wins.
Missing the green is a pretty poor shot. Yeah. I mean, it looked like to me the ball was below his feet, and it looked like he was set up a little too far right. And then just same kind of thing, just kind of an uncommitted swing. Kind of trying to pick a safe line and then making a little bit of an uncommitted swing off that lie.
Yeah.
I mean, it was unbelievable. Go ahead.
No, I'm keeping you too long, but I'm at the point where I really want to hear your answers. So the 18 approach shot, but you've kind of already answered it. So you think the putt to win that he missed on 18 to bogey 18 was a difficult putt? Because I had this feeling he was going to miss it. We've watched him so many times in these spots. I actually thought when we get to the playoff, I'll ask you about that one. But that you're saying that putt was not an easy putt.
No, I don't. I don't think it was that easy of a putt, especially the situation. To me, it didn't look like he hit a bad putt. To me, it just looked like a little bit of an under read, essentially. It's not like I don't think he pulled it. people think, oh, he pulled it, he choked. Like, I think it was just an underread. It looked like he hit a pretty decent putt where he was looking. He just didn't play enough break.
How nervous were you for him when he stepped to the tee box in the playoff after having an opportunity that he didn't close out on?
I'm sure he was pretty nervous. I was nervous for him. He stepped up and hit 2 unbelievable golf shots and had, a 4-foot downhill putt. That just kind of speaks to his resiliency. He did a lot of terrible things in that last couple hours, and he bounced back by doing a great thing. And he did a terrible thing on 18 in regulation to finish, and then he bounces back doing an incredible thing in the playoff. So it provided unbelievable theater for us. That was an incredible finish. I'm sure he would have liked it to be less stressful, but that was so much fun to watch. That's the craziest Masters I've ever seen. Yep.
2 more quickly. I know you're running.
I got nothing but time. I'm just driving on country roads in Georgia and South Carolina, driving to Hilton.
Heading to the RBC. So, did you think Rose would make that putt in the playoff?
I don't know. I just know it's a tricky putt. If he gets that going a little farther left, I feel like it can almost go left. He got it a little too far out right. Just kind of hangs. It's just kind of a sneaky, tough putt. I don't know what else. He looked like he hit a good putt to me. It's all about, most of us hit our lines when we hit the putt. It's just some of those reads are just really, really tricky. It's like, I had a hard time all week making putts, so it doesn't surprise me that I watched someone miss an 18-footer. It's just not that easy.
Sure. No doubt. The putt that Rory missed for bogey on 13, that looked like it was just one slight turn from dropping in the cup. It was crazy how close that was. So when we get to the putt that he makes and wins it on, was that looked to me, he got close enough where it was going to be really hard for him to miss that one. What did you think about that putt that won it?
I thought it was right near like the downhill straight putt, basically, because I had a putt close to that in regulation. I was a little more towards the back of the green, and mine went a little left. Similar to Justin Rose's putt, actually. That's why I'm kind of surprised his didn't go left, because mine did in regulation. And so when Rory set up to it, I was like, oh, no, it looks like he's aimed left edge or left center. And if you watch, I mean, he made it in the left center. It wasn't like dead center. It was
right. I
kind of thought it was a straight putt. He was aiming a little too far left for my liking, and I was like, oh, no, I think he might miss this left. And he started at left center. It didn't really move. It went in the left center. But, yeah, I mean, you could see the pure relief and emotion from him after that went in. That's just just a massive weight lifted off his shoulders. And this is kind of when Rory does that, this is kind of when he likes to go off and do crazy things. So maybe I can stop him from doing all these crazy things.
Do you know him well?
Yeah, I mean, I see him. We're playing pretty much all the same tournaments. We're on the same schedule, and my locker's right next to him every week. So I see him, I see him pretty frequently and talk to him a decent amount. So
two Irishmen with MC right next to each other. Did you get a chance to see him afterwards?
No, because he was.
Yeah.
No, I wasn't on site anymore.
Right.
And so he's got a bunch of. I'm not good enough friends with him where I'm going to wait for him after and congratulate him. I'll definitely congratulate him next time I see him. I don't know when that's going to be, but I'm happy for him as a fan. I'm a Rory fan. He inspires me. I'm always amazed and impressed when I play with him. Like nobody's ever moved and hit a golf ball like him. It's pretty remarkable. I'm the same size as him, and he just does things that nobody's ever quite done with their body and how they move and hit a golf ball. When I play with him, I probably played with him half a dozen times now in my tour career, and every time I play with him, I told this to my caddy when I played with him Saturday at Genesis at Torrey Pines. It's like having a front row seat to watching like MJ or LeBron. You know, it's one of the coolest things because it's just he's one of the most talented golfers of all time. I can't express to you enough how incredible it is to watch him hit a golf ball. It's just different than everyone else. So as a fan, I'm happy that he got this monkey off his back, and it's pretty cool to have watch someone in your lifetime win the career Grand Slam. And we've had two now with Tiger, and for me at least, Tiger and Rory. So it's pretty cool.
You're the best for doing this. Really appreciate it. Really good stuff. Good luck this weekend down in Hilton Head. We'll be watching. Thanks, Denny.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. Appreciate you having me on.
Yep, Denny McCarthy, everybody. Good weekend for him, too. Tied 29th, $142,000 plus to tie for 29th at the Masters. He's going to win one of these days. He's been close a couple of times, and he just putts it too well not to win at some point coming up. And he is competitive as hell. I can tell you that for sure. All right. Talk some NFL draft next. I want to tell you about Window Nation and the offer they have this month. 4 free windows with every 4 you buy, with no money down, no payments, and no interest charged for 2 full years. So if you've been thinking about new windows, if you got windows that are older, 10 years of age or older, you should replace them. There are better insulated windows out there that'll save you more money on heating and air conditioning bills all year long. Ultimately, you'll save money with new windows. Your home will look better as well. Call them at 866-90-NATION or head to windownation.com. Mention my name. It all starts with a free in-home estimate. Doesn't cost you anything. They won't obligate you to anything. You'll find out which windows actually in your home need to be replaced. Right now, again, 4 free windows with every 4 you buy, with no payments and no money owed for 2 full years. Plus, if you buy a house full of windows, Window Nation will give you and install a free entry door. Window Nation has over 20,000 5-star reviews. They are number one in customer service. They have an installation team that is as good as any in the business. 96% of their installs require no follow-up service. And the offer that they have out right now through the end of the month is as good as it gets. Call them, 866-90-NATION. Mention my name. Go to windownation.com. You can do the same there. They'll take really good care of you. So we'll talk more draft on tomorrow's show. I saw this story from over the weekend, and I don't know how many of you caught it. TJ Watt on Instagram just tweeted out a picture of himself, holding up 2 fingers, like the peace sign, and essentially no caption, no context, no other posts on the story. But a lot of people are taking it that there may be something happening with TJ Watt in Pittsburgh. I don't know why that would be. Pittsburgh right now, they need a quarterback desperately. They're waiting on Aaron Rodgers. This is a team that obviously outpunches its weight class year in and year out with an outstanding coach, an outstanding team, but without enough offense and without a quarterback since Ben Roethlisberger retired. TJ Watt, you could certainly argue, along with Myles Garrett, are the 2 best defensive players in the league. I think, I would put Garrett slightly ahead of TJ Watt, but 6 1/2 dozen the other, really, in terms of the best defensive players in the game, the most impactful in the game. He has 1 year left on his deal. That may be part of the reason. He will be entering his age 31 season. He'll have a cap hit of $30.4 million. And then he is potentially an unrestricted free agent in 2026. So who knows? The Instagram post could have been contract extension coming for me to stay in Pittsburgh, but it got speculation going over the weekend on a possible departure. And before I even posed the question, just like it would have been with Myles Garrett, yes, of course. If TJ Watt is even remotely available, Washington, like I think they would have been with Myles Garrett, like I think they have been with Trey Hendrickson, it's just that the price has been too expensive. But they should be in that market for that kind of player. Do I think TJ Watt is going to be made available by Pittsburgh? I think this is just deep into speculation. It's just a photo without really any sort of mention that would lead people to it. But it's just odd when it kind of comes out of the blue and you're wondering, why is he doing that? What would the compensation be? Well, without a contract and needing to sign him at 31 years old to a contract, this is potentially a first rounder, but it's not multiple first rounders like it would have been with Myles Garrett, who is a younger player. TJ Watt entering age 31 season and Myles Garrett entering age 29 season. Let me look it up. I've forgotten. I think it's 29. Yeah, he's currently 29. He'll be 30 at the end of next season. Yeah, these are still players that totally change what your defense is capable of doing in a window number one season. This is a window for Washington, the first for Jaden Daniels during his career, but a window for them to win it all. And that's how I believe they should be thinking. Just interesting, that people were speculating on TJ Watt over the weekend. And of course, if he is available, like with Trey Hendrickson, like people thought for a brief moment with Myles Garrett, Washington's going to be mentioned at the top of the list. And yeah, I'd be surprised if they weren't interested in TJ Watt. TJ Watt, the year he came out, I just remember that specific draft because that 2017 draft, if you recall, was a draft that included Washington taking John Allen. And in that draft, that was, TJ Watt went at the end of that round. He went at 30 overall out of the 32 picks. But I'll never forget Cooley before that draft. Cooley said, after Myles Garrett, the next two best players in the draft are Christian McCaffrey and TJ Watt. He thought both of them were superstars. I remember he specifically said, you're not drafting a running back with McCaffrey. You're drafting almost a wide receiver and running back in one body. And he loved the tape of TJ Watt and was absolutely convinced that TJ Watt would turn into a star at the NFL level, and he was right. He liked John Allen, too. Don't get me wrong. I remember he was a big fan of John Allen. He knew John Allen. A lot of people, out there knew John from his high school days in Ashburn. TJ Watt, man, that would be interesting. All right, a couple of other things to finish up the show with when we come back. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the Team980.com.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, Rory McIlroy has finally done it. The Masters monkey is off his back. He becomes the sixth golfer all time to achieve the career Grand Slam, first since Tiger Woods did it in 2000. Aaron Judge has also been named the captain for Team USA of the 2026 World Baseball Classic. In the NBA, firings are around the league as the NBA closes regular season. Yesterday, all the lottery teams have officially closed it out. The Phoenix Suns have fired head coach Mike Budenholzer after finishing 11th place at 36-46. The Pelicans have fired executive vice president David Griffin after finishing 21-61, their worst record under his 6-year tenure. In other news, completely unrelated to sports, Katy Perry has been launched into space on a Blue Origin flight, reaching heights up to 65 miles above the Earth's surface. And that's what's trending.
So a week from Thursday night, when the NFL draft begins, running back's going to be a much talked about position. It has been already lead up to the draft. Running backs going in the first round appear to be back in vogue. The position itself has been resuscitated here in recent years. And it pretty much went away draft wise. It became very much a commodity position. Teams looked at it as you can't draft running backs in the first round. You certainly can't draft them high in the first round. There are just too many of them. The variability on performance, the predictability of the performance. And the bottom line is many of the great running backs in the game, some of the very best, come on night 2 or night 3 of the draft. You know, in recent years, if you go back just 15 years, we have 3 drafts only in the last 15 drafts in which we've had 3 running backs taken. We've had multiple drafts where no running backs have been taken in the first round. Last year, no running backs taken in the first round. 2022, no running backs taken in the first round. In 2016, there was just one. We've had a couple of them were just one. 2014, no running backs taken in the first round. 2013, no running backs taken in the first round. Just 3 times again. 2010, the 3 running backs taken in the first round were C.J. Spiller, Ryan Matthews. What happened to him? Fresno State to the Chargers at number 12, and Javid Best, the Cal running back who had, I think, a lot of concussion problems in the NFL. In 2012, we had 3 with Trent Richardson, Bust, Doug Martin, and David Wilson, who had some years with the Cardinals, actually got drafted by the Giants. And then in 2018, we had 3 running backs taken in the first round: Saquon Barkley, Rashad Penny, and Sony Michel. You go back pre-2010, and there were 3 taken in 2009. 2008, we had 5 running backs taken in the first round. 2006, 4 running backs taken in the first round. It was, it was different. Running backs were viewed much differently. You go back before this century, running backs were always in the conversation for number 1 overall at times. Interestingly, the guys taken super high, like top half of the first round, even during this era of running backs aren't important, have really produced. Like, Zeke Elliott was taken number 4 overall. He certainly had a nice run there for a while. Christian, dominant player. Barkley, number 2 overall, unbelievable back. And then the last back that was taken in the top half of the first round was Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs, both taken in the top half of the first round. So we've had some recent history in which running backs taken in the top half of the first round have really succeeded. Well, Ashton Genty's pretty much a lock to go in the top half of the first round, if not the top 10, potentially as high as 6 or 5. And Amarian Hampton from North Carolina is a first-round possibility. Guys like Tootin from Virginia Tech, Judkins from Ohio State, Trayvon Henderson from Ohio State are all potential first-round guys as well. So probably not top half of the first round, but it's going to be interesting to see what the strategy is. Because to me, running back, you take a running back in the first round with a first-round pick, not because you're interested in that 5th-year option, like perhaps with other positions, but you are convinced that you are getting Saquon Barkley, you're getting Jahmyr Gibbs, you're getting Bijan Robinson. You're getting one of the true special, massive impact players. If not, you look at day 3. If you don't think, as Washington, if Genty and Hampton are gone, that Trayvon Henderson or Caleb Johnson or Damian Martinez, who is one of my favorites in this draft, or Judkins, are Saquon Barkley types, Jahmyr Gibbs types, Bijan Robinson types, you don't take them in the first round at 29. You wait until Saturday. Maybe, with the 1 pick that you have at 61 overall, but you're not taking any back at 29 that you don't think has a massive impact year one because it's the position you can step in and have massive impact right from the jump. All right. Thanks to Ben Standig, who joined us on the show today. Thanks to Denny McCarthy for spending some time with us as well. Chris Russell next.